Well, I expect you're wondering why we're here tonight.
Chris Squire's bass playing on songs like Roundabout is so awesome that it inspired artists like Geddy Lee, John Deacon, Steve Harris, and Les Claypool. So strap in, I'm gonna decode some of that Chris the Fish Squire awesomeness for you, and show you how to use his special sauce on your own bass lines, whether you're in a famous 70s prog band or not. You're probably not. The main Roundabout bass riff is full of ghost notes, which are super cool in many styles of music, not just rock. Ghost notes are when you cover the strings with your fretting hand and then you pick or pluck to get a thumpy percussive sound. The ghost notes in this riff, which are marked as X's in the music, give it some nice contrast. Check out how different it would sound if you played every note clean and non-ghosty. You lose a lot of contrast, and all those notes fill up the sonic space more, so there's less room for other sounds to cut through. Ghost notes break up the riff, so you get a nice mix of notes and percussive thumps. There are tons of other bass lines that use ghost notes. There's Chuck Rainey's bass line on Rocksteady by Aretha Franklin. Kim Deal's bass line on Hey by the Pixies. And lots of slap bass lines like Mark King on Level 42's Love Games. To get started with ghost notes, you can practice the coordination of switching from clean note to ghost note back and forth, maybe through a scale just super simply, or something more fancy. By the way, I made you a complete Roundabout bass tab with sheet music, so you're not stuck looking up crappy tabs. The link is in the description. And while you're down in the description, you can click like and subscribe if you want more of these bassline breakdown videos. So in the main riff, we're mostly feeling the notes right on the beat. 1 and a 2 and a 3. But there's a rhythmic emphasis off the beat later in the riff that people sometimes miss, and this is called syncopation. So real quick 16th notes primer. If you divide each beat into 4 equal parts, you get 16 notes, aka 16th notes, which we count 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a. So this riff goes 1E and a 2E and a 3E and then there's a note that starts the next little group on the of 3, and that's the syncopation. And people often play this wrong. I definitely used to before I listened to the track more closely. They'll miss the syncopation and they'll start those notes right on beat 4, like this. 4E and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4E and a. Here's what that sounds like with the track. And here it is the right way with syncopation. This note pattern at the end of the riff is super common, and if you're hip to the minor pentatonic scale, it's just the 4th, 5th, 7th, and octave. But the syncopation adds flavor that makes it different than other riffs, like say Paranoid by Black Sabbath, which is the same notes, but not syncopated. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Or the guitar riff from Tribute by Tenacious D. I talk about syncopation in my Beginner to Badass course on an 8th note level, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. This is on a 16th note level, hitting E's or U's, 1 E and a, 2 E and a. I talk more about how you can apply this to your own playing in my Beginner Basslines People Play Wrong video here on YouTube, and how it's used in Another One Bites the Dust by Queen. Okay, one more cool thing about the main riff. Normally it starts on beat 1. 1. But the first time you hear it, and a few times after that, the first note actually comes in early on the and of 4. Check it out. 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Ugh! Makes it really exciting when it first comes in. This is a super cool musical device called anticipation. It's also sometimes called a push. Anticipations add excitement and pull the listener into the next part of the song. Pushes are usually done by multiple instruments at once, so you don't just sound like you don't know how to play in time. Here's another one from a little later in the track with a drum fill leading into it. 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and. Just to show you real quick how you could use anticipation, let's say you're playing something simple like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's okay, but nothing really motivates each repeat of the riff. Here's what it sounds like if the drummer and I add some pushes to give us a little more momentum. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and. Alright, moving on from the main riff to what I guess you would call the chorus. Let's focus in on that drum and bass interaction. It's so freaking cool. Here's just the drums and bass. Nasty! So I have a how to play bass with a drummer video here on YouTube, and spoiler alert, the main idea I give you is to stick with the kick, meaning play the same rhythm as the kick drum, as one possible safe starting point for a bass rhythm. Well, Roundabout isn't safe. This is 1971's Fragile album, and they're totally breaking that rule in this section. The bass and drums are mostly staying on the 8th note grid together, but they're bouncing back and forth, kind of ping-ponging off of each other. Not to mention that Bill Bruford is kind of swapping in the snare drum where the kick drum would normally go in places. If we look at the rhythm of the snare, the kick drum, and the bass, there are places where the bass and drums are lining up, but also places where they don't. Having the bass and drums converse like this takes more of your attention as a listener, and there's space for that in the track in this section. There's super simple quarter notes on the hi-hat, and there's big spaces in the vocals. If the bass did line up 100% with the drums in this section, it just wouldn't sound as cool. Here's a bummer of a demo of that. So yes, this section sounds super cool with the bass and drums contrast, but that doesn't always mean this is gonna land you on the right bass line for a song. I suggest you test this out with a drummer friend in the comfort of your garage so you can see what works and what doesn't. Don't just whip out a crazy counter kick drum part on somebody's simple pop song. So I won't play this all day, no more, no more. Let's zoom out a little and look at the use of space in this bass line. So here's the whole song. This is the bass track on top, and the first thing that's cool, at the risk of sounding like a bass teacher, is look at these big blank spots where the bass isn't even playing. Immediately that creates contrast in the song, because sometimes we hear bass and sometimes not. And even when Chris is playing, there's big differences between sections. That main riff takes up a ton of space, even with the ghost notes to tighten it up, but compare that to the chorus riff. Space, nothing. More space, so cool. And then the space goes in the opposite direction in those guitar solos at the end. Every 16th note getting hit in the bass. The simplest way to apply space in your own bass lines is to think from a bird's eye view of the song. What are you playing in the verse, the chorus, the bridge, and is there any contrast? There doesn't always have to be. Some songs kind of stay the same the whole time. But if you feel the vibe of the song changing from verse to chorus and you're not changing your part, you might want to play with going from playing less notes to playing more notes, or maybe from playing short notes to playing longer notes, which is all going to change the feeling of space in your bass line. Okay, let's move on to the big gnarly bridge. So the main bass line goes like this. If you were playing the song live, that's probably what you'd want to play. But check out what else is buried on the keyboard track a little later in the bridge. Chris is totally doubling that organ melody on bass as well. That's happening while the other bass line is also happening in the same register. It's freaking mayhem. Check it out. I'll play both bass parts with the drums so you can hear how intensely they bounce off each other. This melody doubling shows how much Chris was influenced by earlier melodic bassists like Paul McCartney, Jack Bruce, and John Entwistle. You can hear more bass melody in lots of Yes songs. And also Chris's 1975 Fish Out of Water album, which is so awesome, so much bass melody. I have to play some for you right now. All right, can we talk about his bass tone? It's clicky, it's growly, it's nasty. The notes buzz when they sustain. That just rocks. Some of the sound obviously comes from Chris's gear, the 1964 Rickenbacker with both pickups running into separate amplifiers. You just can't get that sound playing a P bass with flat wounds. There's no way to exactly replicate his gear, and don't bother drooling over a used Chris Squire signature bass.
When they made them, it didn't sound anything like mine, but they had my name on them anyway.
There's a few easy things you can do to get closer to his tone. One, put on some nice bright stainless steel round wounds, like the Rotosound Swing 66 that Chris used. Two, grab a pick. Chris used the gray Herco heavy picks, which are pretty plasticky and bright sounding. Three, pick near the bridge to get more bite.
That's it.
And four, just play really hard and nasty. So that's a good start, but what do you do if you don't have a Rickenbacker or you don't like playing with a pick? Well, if Geddy Lee can play this song on a jazz bass with his fingers, you can too. So on a 2-pickup bass, use both pickups, turn your tone up, and also crank your treble or high mids on either your bass or your amp to get a little more nasty. There's a couple ways to go about the plucking hand. One is to do clacky downward plucks like I talk about in my Steve Harris video. And Geddy plays that way a lot of the time too. But for the main riff of Roundabout, Geddy is actually doing a back and forth strum with his index finger.
Well, the thing is, you see, my name is Chris Squire. Here's my driving license, and to prove it, there it is. Christopher Russell Edward Squire. Here we have an English £5 note. Have I spoken for a minute yet? Why am I here? Anyway, why am I here anyway? But anyway, what I say is why, what for? Anyway, cheerio.